Hello everyone, Ovs here. In our last episode, we said that we had one more episode before part 1 was going to come out. Well, we had this up our poofy Penelope / Cressida sleeves. We actually recorded this episode ages ago. So this is not our last episode before part 1 comes out. That is coming out later in the week, a few days before the season drops. This is a little bonus episode that we recorded, I don't even know when, a few weeks ago. It was the day of Bowral, basically, and we never got around to posting it for various different reasons, and we were gonna bin it, but we thought, you know what, let's clown a little bit more. So we're just going to release this bonus little episode. We hope you enjoy the ride. We'll see you soon for our actual final before part 1 in a few days, but until then, happy clowning. Hello everyone and welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Ovs, I'm ill, I've got a cold. No. Beans isn't here. We still have 2 other people knocking around though. How are we doing, Lecky and Veg? We're dragging our way through the week, aren't we?
I'm alright.
Veg, how are you doing, babe?
Oh my god, it's been a week. I'll tell you that damn much.
It has. Shall I give the context? First of all, we're recording this. Well, yeah, I don't know when we're actually going to release this episode, but we're recording this on the 21st of April.
Yeah. Happy belated birthday to Veg, who is celebrating her birthday this weekend that we are recording. Thank you so much.
So you've had a birthday, you've had a sex plotline.
I've had a dark sex crisis 2024. And
are you having another crisis 2024?
Is it a crisis? I don't know. But to round off the week that was... my relationship status has changed. I was waiting for an engagement ring, but, you know, I've been waiting and waiting. And finally, I got sick of waiting and broke up. Oh my god.
Yes, babe. We're here for it. We're here for it.
What an absolute journey. And it's like, this is like almost 10-year relationship, so it's like a big deal. But I'm like, it happened, you guys. I messaged you guys first.
Aww.
It happened literally a few hours ago. So I don't know what is going to happen. I could start crying in the middle of the episode. Anything could happen.
She's a loose cannon and we're going to go with it.
I could just be in a really chaotic mood. So bear with me, listener. Yeah. I'm happy about it. I feel like there are a lot of things wrong, not just the engagement. And I feel like I'm actually going to have my like proper love story in life now.
You are, and you deserve a love story.
You're kind of like Penn, where you got tired of waiting and then the love came into your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except this is going to be a different guy. This is going to be Debling.
Yeah, slight difference.
I would be happy with Debling.
You will find your vegetarian conservationist.
We decided that Veg would be more appropriate with a cheese man.
Yeah. Cheese man.
A man that would jump for her grapes.
We were thinking through, who are the good guys? I was like, oh, I can't wait for my Colin. And then I was like,
Veg, we went to the theatre this week.
Oh,
that happened this week.
That was this week.
Can you believe it? I feel it. I feel old. Feel old, babe. It's been a long week.
Oh my God. I've aged 1 year technically, but I feel like I've aged 5.
Decades. Yeah, we saw Underdog with James Frohn. It was great.
We did speak briefly to James Frohn. I bullied Obs into us greeting him.
And you told him you're excited for Prudank, right?
We did.
Yes.
I love that.
And like, I just wanted to make him feel like, I don't know.
Welcomed.
Because I had so long to wait for the season. I was like, well, you know, be nice to show him he's got fans and stuff.
Yeah. And he's got the play and he's got the show and it's just an exciting year for so many of the actors.
Yeah.
How was the play?
It was great. I love the Brontes, so like I was fully invested. Veg, we like caught you up.
Was it funny? Was it a comedy?
It was funny,
yeah. It was funny. It was definitely a comedy. It was like, I can't really like compare it to anything. It was like a very funny take from Charlotte Bronte's perspective on her relationship with Anne.
And he has good comedy chops?
Well, he was playing a depressed alcoholic who died young, so it wasn't really...
That was some nice dark humour.
It wasn't
and also
really...
So somewhat different from Dankworth. Kind of funny.
When he was dead or other times, they would be a chorus.
Just like Guys in London.
Sort of being different comedy things, and he would be in those scenes as well as like a chorus member, and he was good.
He was amazing at those.
Oh, speaking of James Frohn, apparently he's been liking some people's comments on Twitter when they mention Prudank, which is super sweet. One user on Twitter, she commented about how the reverse height difference in the Prudank relationship is kind of equally important and kind of cool to see a woman who's taller than her male counterpart represented on screen or whatever. And he liked that. It was super cute.
Prudence is thriving.
Yeah.
But, we didn't say, speaking of Prudence, Beans is fine. She's just moving. She's had a busy week as well. At various points, we might get her to chip in as the voice of Beans.
Right.
If she has any thoughts. So she's fine. She's just got a lot of boxes going on at the minute. Honestly, big week for people in the pod.
Speaking of boxes,
What do you have there, little veg?
one of my lovely friends got me for my birthday the Bridgerton Biscuiteers collaboration. So here's the
look at
sound of it
her.
opening. Here's the sound of the paper.
Biscuit ASMR. This is the content for Colin.
Yeah, so Veg has the biscuits. You
Yes.
have the cushion. You'll have to get
I
together.
do.
Eat a biscuit.
We just need a bench now and then we're good to go.
They're really nice, actually. Like, I think they're quite expensive, but they are very good.
There's a lot of artistry considering they're like hand iced.
Yeah, they're really delicately iced. I haven't dug into the carriage yet, but they are very delicious. Normally I would just demolish these, but I feel like I can't do that.
Yeah, you have to save them.
Big fan. That's probably the best collab they've done. That or the hay fever tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm living for that. We've spent 2 years being called
Allergy stands.
allergy
was the
stands. Yeah, we
insult.
spent 2 years being called allergy stands to have a collaboration with Flonase. It's fine because
Right.
I feel like I've internalized all the negativity and it's just funny to me. So the Flonase collaboration is just hilarious.
You pick your battles, don't you? Leck, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I worked on a music edit yesterday for the majority of the day, and it was so nice, and I'm so excited to finish it.
Was it nice to look at clips of Polin instead of our sound waves?
Yes, I am already dreading the next episode that comes out.
Because listeners, it takes us about, I'm not exaggerating, 25 to 30 hours of editing per episode. More?
We're perfectionists. It takes a while. It takes a long time.
It takes a very, very, very long time.
It is what it is.
But I just thought I'd get you on a call today. We're recording at funny times. By the time this episode gets released, there'll be so much more information. But at the end of the day, like, if this is how it's going to be for the next month now. We're going to get more information. We're going to be playing catch up.
I mean, all of our episodes are late at this point.
We've had a week since the stills dropped. Lots of things have come out, and I just thought we've had a week to ruminate. Let's get on a call. Let's just have some chats. Let's go through some things and see how it goes. You up for it?
Yes. 2 quick things for our listeners who aren't listening to the reread episodes, because I know not everybody is listening to the reread. If we do discuss any spoilers for content that is actually in the show, things that maybe the people in Australia have seen, we will be putting timestamps and we'll have Beans do a cute little spoiler warning so you can skip ahead, pause, etc.
You will know.
Beans the jingle queen.
And then also just for our YouTube listeners, we're kind of behind on proofreading some of our subtitles, our captions, and apologies, and we will get on that as soon as we can.
We're fighting for our little lives, I promise you.
Yeah.
It's a chaotic old time. But if you want to keep up with us on like a daily basis, go onto our Instagram because that's where we're reacting to everything. And then we're just sort of muddling our way through the next month. I mean, by the time you hear this, we'll all know what episode 1 is.
Oh, God, yeah.
Block 4 part 2 is out there floating in the ether. We don't really know. Just bear with us. But should we get started?
Yes.
First of all, we've had quite a few interviews. Let's just ease our way in. Jess Brownell, the showrunner, did a really interesting interview with Vanity Fair. And she covered a lot of ground. But one of the really exciting things that we talked about with the interview was the tone of the season. So we all know it's going to have a rom-com energy, but we heard a little bit more about the specific influences that have been on the series. So they talked about pretty much any John Hughes movie. So Pretty in Pink. If you remember all the way back to like the first few weeks of filming, Nicola shared that scene from Pretty in Pink of Ducky going into, was it like the record shop and basically like clowning around? And at the time we all suspected, like, is this going to be like a Genevieve Modise thing? Is this going to be Colin trying to get Penn's attention? 16 Candles, Elsewhere, She's All That apparently was a huge influence.
Yes, very interesting.
Richard Curtis movies, which ties back because again in early filming there was a lot of Hugh Grant references with Luke. Nora Ephron, An Affair to Remember, Love Story, Roman Holiday. Luke also said later that he watched tons and tons of rom-coms when they were filming. So if you want to do some like hardcore prep for season 3 that isn't AO3 or edits or listening to us ramble on for hours, go watch some movies. You have a little watch list. Off you go.
Put it on your letterboxd.
But one thing that the interviewer said was that when they watched the show, one of their favourite things was how much they laugh together, which is something you don't get in a lot of period romances. How much did that make your hearts flutter?
Butterflies.
We saw that at Osterley, and that has become like one of my favourite scenes ever at Osterley.
Yes.
But Jess said that banter is one of her favourite things to write.
Love that.
So that's really an influence in the season, and it's those two nerds.
Love some good banter.
Absolutely. In an interview with Bustle, Luke also said that once again they thought about Ross and Rachel from Friends a lot. That's something that I think's informed a lot of their journey from the beginning. But he said because it never works out at the right time, they keep missing each other. It's so fun to play the different versions of when someone is ready to commit and the other isn't. So it's the oscillation where they keep, and he said this before, where they can't quite get on the same moment at the same time.
On the same level, yeah.
But today in Bowral, they were playing a little game. Lecky, what went on today?
They played a little game of Kiss, Marry, Kill, and Luke's choice for kill was Lady Whistledown. A little book call in there.
And he was kind of speaking from Colin's perspective, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
So he said he'd get a brotherly kiss from Benedict, which is adorable.
Yeah.
He'd marry Penn, naturally.
Yeah.
And then he'd kill Lady Whistledown. Who, guys, would you kiss, marry, kill?
In the whole season?
In the whole series.
In the whole series.
Kiss Philip, marry Colin, kill Nigel Burbrick. I don't know.
Fair play.
Yeah. I would kill Lady Danbury's husband.
Oh my God, I thought you were going to say Lady Danbury. Fucking hell, Veg.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah.
Get him gone early. Who do you want to walk down the dark path with?
And who would I'd kiss? Yeah, I'll make out with Cressida, why not? And
Okay.
I guess I'll marry Benedict.
Benedict?
No, Anthony. I'll pick Anthony.
You are very Anthony.
Yeah, you have a Kate tendency. 100% you'd be able to go against him. I'm going to go down the dark walk with Fife, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to have a great old time. Who would I marry? Would I actually marry Colin? I think I'd crush his spirit. I love Colin, you know I do, but I'd hurt Colin's feelings all the time is what I do, because I'd say something really harsh as an affectionate and he'd take it really seriously. Genuinely think I would. I'd maybe marry Michael. I think he could handle... Oh, he's a bit angsty. He'd be terrible because he runs off to Indy the minute something gets stressful, and I run off to Greece the minute something gets stressful. So we'd never see each other. Who would I marry? I think maybe marriage isn't for me, sadly.
Oh, no, it'll happen.
I think marry John and hope he doesn't die.
Hope he doesn't die? That's a terrible answer.
John's too sweet for me. You know, I think I'd probably be better with Benedict. No, he's a bit...
I could see you with a Benedict.
I can see you with a Benedict, but would Benedict be a good husband?
And then I'm going to kill...
This sounds like you're advanced confessing.
I'm going to kill Lady Cowper because I feel like we're going to hate her, and I feel like it paves the way for Ben's season. So it just helps my own story.
Who are you killing?
Lady Cowper.
Oh, Lady Cowper.
I feel like we're going to want to kill her by the end of the season, so it's just more efficient.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So again, harkening back to what Luke said ages ago about he might have the worst reaction. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds like she's going to do something as Whistledown that's really going to rile him up and rile him and rile him and rile him. So he wants to quote Book Colin, destroy Whistledown, only to then have the realisation that he's fallen in love with Whistledown.
Yeah.
Drama, drama, drama. Veg, your little neck of the woods. A bit of costuming info before we, get into the stills of it all. There was a great article from Vogue.
There was.
Going into all details about costuming. It really broke down a lot of the characterisation and the styles that they've gone for this season. So with Colin, they talked about how he's come back more rugged and worldly. So they've traded in our little baby boy blue for the earthier shades, which we've seen.
For the Marlborough Man. Sorry.
Yeah, I love how in the article it's like, we were going for Marlborough Man, and then the fans took it to piracy. Yes, we did. That is something I actively participated in happening. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Although we obviously see the transition from the pirate into buttoned-up gentleman again.
Gentleman husband.
The Lord Whistledown, because that's it. He's like a lord.
Yeah.
But he's got he's got another side to him.
Yeah, I loved his article. I think it was so nice to hear all the nuance. And I think sometimes we get the odd comment on YouTube of people who are like, you guys are overthinking this. And I'm like, maybe we are, but then read the article. And no, fully all this stuff goes into it, just like we thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the best details was, is this the one where they touched on about how she has that shimmery underlayer on her dresses because he's trying to mix the tones? We are not crazy. It was intentional.
We're not insane. So the quote is, this season, because of the story we're telling, we thought, let's make it softer. It's more textural, a little more blurry. Now, there's a word that I never need to hear again. We know it's blurry.
Yeah.
They say we layered fabrics. For instance, we take a warmer colour and a cooler colour and combine them. So when you're looking at a dress, you're not totally sure if it's blue or green. I feel like this has validated so much because how many times recently we've been looking at something and we're like, what fucking colour is this?
Yeah, for Emerald Pen, when we got the high quality stills, we were like, oh, is that a bluer green or is that an emerald green? It kind of looks different depending on the light.
It looks blue suddenly.
Kind of bluey.
Mm-hmm. Editor's note, in an interview with Screen Rant, John Glazer actually talked more about Emerald Pen and said that when we see her costuming at the ball, they were actually following the colour that Erica Ockvist, the head hair and makeup artist, was using for Penelope's hair. So if you look at that costume carefully, John said, the underlayers are actually bronze and green as a reference to the Featheringtons, but in a way to make it a cohesive look. In the interview, John and Erica talked more about Penelope's direction for her hair, makeup and costuming, and they both pulled on the influences of Marilyn Monroe, Jessica Rabbit, and the 1950s. Erica said that they were inspired by how Penelope is basically taking charge of her own life. She decides that by taking charge of her own look, she will get the goal she has set for herself. And as a result of that, they went into the world of old Hollywood glamour to make her look as sexy and desirable as possible, with the Hollywood waves, that kind of knockout beauty. And Blue Pen at Rest Park / Fuller House, which we'll talk about later, like it was always a bit shimmery, and we've seen extras who were walking around in sort of an ombre. They talked about how Eloise starts to mirror the flamboyance of Cressida's outfits, and apparently Cressida is just going to get more and more flamboyant.
Could her shoulders get any bigger from the stills we've received?
We thought Pen was on a sleeve journey. She has redefined a sleeve journey.
The next still is just like shoulder, like the entire still.
Well, in this article, they talked about how there is going to be, and they were like, you'll know it when you see it.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a Cressida outfit.
But in part 2.
In part 2, that's just going to be like insane.
Yeah.
I think this might be when she's claiming she's Whistledown, or like her big villain turn against Pen.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
But speaking of siblings, Francesca was described as shy and retiring. She seems to love her pianoforte more than the idea of falling in love. And as she meets potential partners, keep that in mind for a little bit later.
Potential partners, plural. How interesting.
Her costumes offer clues about her future. Now, where have we seen this before? Episode 4, many fans noticed that she was wearing this sort of tweed-inspired outfits that nod to a certain Scotsman.
And we thought that might be where she was at the time, but we actually think maybe that isn't the case and it'll come later.
Yeah, this is like telling the truth of her story, like the end, well, not the end goal, kind of the end goal, an end goal.
End game.
Before one end game of a couple.
Oh God, yeah, sorry, I forgot he died.
Rest in peace, John. And another little editor's note, in the interview with Screen Rant, the costume designer John Glazer talked about Francesca, specifically her costuming, and he pointed out that they based her on Katharine Hepburn in the 1940s. But he also pointed out that she wears sheer blouses, it's a youthful look but tasteful and not the restrictive Regency look. But he said her clothes are translucent because she is a mystery. She's going to be a mystery to the audience, and she's a little mysterious in the actual show because she is essentially a new character. But we'll get to Fran because there's a whole new ship to be sailing when it comes to Francesca, as if she didn't have enough going on. But Pen's gloves got a shout out as well. We have obsessed about her gloves for God knows how long now.
Or barely their gloves.
They said that they wanted more sheer gloves this time, and for Penelope, they described them as little sheer mitts. You probably won't even notice her wearing them.
Colin didn't notice either.
Well, that offers sort of the adherence to propriety, but a more sensual side with the touch. But they also talked about her costuming and her silhouette. They say we pushed her forward a little in time to 1817. So the show takes place in 1815. They've just pushed her silhouette ever so slightly forward. They've dropped the empire waist, and I love that because that really, she is a woman ahead of her time in so many ways.
Oh.
And I love that that's how they've incorporated that into her silhouette as well. She's quite literally ahead of the rest of them. And then talking of modern Polin, they also talked about how they made Colin's costuming, especially that pirate outfit, to have sort of a Regency flair, but a very, very modern take on it. This sort of a modern Regency man. So something that you wouldn't have found in the actual period. They call it semi-period correct. And they also talk about Colin's long coats and how they gave him great movement when he walks. Oh, I cannot wait for that.
Doctor Who vibes. Sherlock even.
Veg, our correspondent, any other little thoughts about the costuming?
Yes. So I feel like we haven't talked deep on costuming for a while. And when we saw the clip back in Time Doesn't Exist, whenever we first saw Good Morning Britain clip, whatever it's called, GMB. When we first saw that, we were sort of unsure about the dress and the gloves, and I think we sort of thought maybe it would be her sort of hesitant step.
Yeah, like transition.
Yeah, and I think we'd said the same about the market still, like one of our to-dum stills. I have to say, seeing it in the trailer in proper movement absolutely completely changed my opinion. Those dresses are both gorgeous.
Just to interject real quickly, even the Austerley dress, I've pointed out that the sleeves are kind of like more bulky, but when you see that dress on her and she's moving in like the clip where they're like giggling together, she could not look more beautiful in that Austerley scene.
Well, this is something I was going to ask you, actually. This was literally the next thing. So in exactly the right headspace, because we haven't touched on costuming, and maybe as we go through some of these stills we will, but I just want to know, we've seen so many gorgeous pen looks. What are sort of your top 3, or just anything that when you think of the season are really, really sticking with you, that you are really just in love with? Because there's so many different looks and I think they're telling so many different stories. But what's jumping out to mind at you straight away?
The library room, I call it the Cinderella outfit.
Blue pen.
Blue pen in fuller library.
When she's sort of smiling and looking up at Debling, I think I share this opinion with a lot of people. I just don't know, it's just something about her eyes, like the colours so complement her.
She's radiant.
Gorgeous, absolutely love it.
They're just such a good one to start with, because Blue pen we've known about for a long time, but obviously I don't think we could have imagined exactly how she looked. What I think is so interesting about Blue pen is her hairstyle is so wildly distinctly different to any other hairstyle we've ever seen Pen have. Even in the season, it looks really, really young to me. Does that make sense? And I wonder if the reason she looks quite young in that is because that episode is called Old Friends. Any other looks that are really sticking out to you?
Other Blue pen.
Other Blue pen.
Yeah. So there's a TikTok craze going around where people get their colours done, which my mum got me when I was like 13. Spring, if anyone's interested. And that colour palette is so her. Like, she just looks so gorgeous in that periwinkle blue.
Yeah. Oh, she was made for it.
Well, she looks gorgeous in everything, but especially that. Becky, do you have any favourites?
I like the dress she wears when he comes to see her in the Featherington garden, and like the green necklace she's wearing. She looks so pretty there.
One of the first looks that she has. And then, of course, the dream. That's really fantastical.
Yeah. With the ribbon, the conspicuously placed ribbon.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the ribbon. It's perfect for pulling open.
Yeah, as she's stepping forward, the overlayer kind of gapes open. So you can see that I think it's coming off.
Easy access.
Yeah, people think that because it's a dream as well, this is what's going to take us through the stages of the wet dream that Colin has. Like, he does a little tug.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. Thanks for that, bitch.
Oh, no.
So basically, we're going to go through it very vaguely chronologically. We're not going to go exactly scene by scene, but we're going to go sort of episode by episode. And we're going to have a look at some of the stills, but there's certain questions that have popped up, or little story beats that I want your opinions on, just things that we've been thinking about. And we're going to start with 301 Out of the Shadows. I will say we're not necessarily going to go into like the episode breakdown or anything for 301, because by the time you hear this, we'll all know exactly what happens. But there's just a couple of points in it where I just want ideas about just like the wider storylines. So 301 Out the Shadows, you'll all know what exactly happens. So the first still that I just want to quickly touch on, and it's not a revelation because I think we already knew this was going to be a big factor, but I just have such a soft spot this relationship. So obviously we had 2 stills of Colin returning home to his family. So there's a really funny one where he's like got his luggage in his hand and he's like, "Way, look who it is." And we now, of course, have the extra clip of Colin arriving back in Mayfair and surprising his family. And then there is this still, and I love it so much, where he's hugging Eloise. And we know from the filming leaks themselves that he hugs every sibling. He hugs Kate and everyone. But I love that and I feel like they focus on this for a really particular reason, taking a still of this moment. We had really thought a lot that there was going to be a parallel between Colin and Francesca's stories. Obviously, we knew Daphne wasn't going to be in the season. So I think we thought a lot that maybe Francesca would take that role for Colin and they'd have a close bond. But I'm really not sure that's how they're going to play it now. I'm thinking that, especially as we've seen him have conversations with Violet, that he might have the love clarification discussion with Violet. And I think they really are going to drill into his relationship with Eloise as a huge pillar of this season. What do you think?
No, I think so. But I do think there might be a parallel, but just in a way that we didn't suspect, that maybe Francesca's relationship with John may be going on kind of behind the scenes as well.
Not a bad guess there, Lecky. From recent promo and interviews with the cast, it really seems as if this might be the direction that Francesca and John's relationship takes, or at least the two of them are going against the grain and expectations of the ton. In a recent interview, Golda said that the Queen's attention was drawn to Francesca by Lady Danbury. The Queen finds herself really identifying with Francesca as a character. She's a little bit quiet, she does her own thing, but she's incredibly authentic to who she truly is. It sounds as though from Lady Danbury's encouragement, the Queen is going to become fixed on a match between Francesca and another suitor, who we will come to later, and that Violet will also struggle to understand Francesca's approach to love. Adjua has talked a lot in promo about Lady Danbury being off her game this season, and this could be one of the ways in which she has misjudged the situation, thinking that Francesca and Lord Samadani are a perfect match without realising that Francesca is instead drawn to someone else entirely. Which is so not what we thought was going to happen with Frohn.
As the Queen is maybe pushing this other relationship, potentially.
Yeah. I like that, like, they're in parallel stories. And what is so interesting is you have such a flip from when Colin returned home in season 2. And Eloise, at first she was happy to see him, but then she really sickened of him really quickly. And she was very disparaging of him and he really annoyed her. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I wonder if we are going to see that way more protective side of Eloise towards Colin that's going to intensify as the season goes on. So I just wanted to point out that I really, really love that because I love the relationship. You know this, like one of my favourite moments from the entire season, from the entire series is 207.
Same.
When
the Harmony Ball.
Colin picks up Elle and swings her. I love that relationship so much when he swings her around.
Yes. Love that.
And he said this himself. He says this is like the real love triangle, the real love story is the three of them. Speaking of Colin, he's obviously arrived home in time for the presentation, and we got a couple more stills of the Livingston party, which we previously talked about had sort of the white theming. We think what this is it takes place on the same day as the debut, so it's like an after party. Do you think they're all like, let's go around to mine? Yeah. And this is where Lady Danbury. I love Lady Danbury's costume here because she's in white, but she has like the red burgundy ribbon on her hat. I think it's so cool. So we think this is sort of the debut after party, if you will. And this is where Pen and Colin are going to reconnect for the first time and that cold shoulder that she's going to give him. We've got a new still of Colin with a group of debutantes, Ever the Flirt. Good to see you out in action, which obviously will only enhance Penelope's suffering. I mean, it wouldn't be a season Bridgerton without her suffering, would it? So obviously we have a little tragic cold shoulder at the Livingston garden party. The stab through the heart as Eloise is hanging out with Cressida.
Actually, it kind of reminds me of that character promo they just released where Eloise kind of looks like
she's regretting it.
Annoyed by Cressida. I wonder if it starts out that she just reluctantly befriends Cressida, then sees more depth in her, and they become real friends.
Now, this is all speculation because it'll already be known by the time we do this, but...
Yeah, but maybe she's like secretly annoyed by her or dismisses her, but then realizes there's more depth to her and more nuance, and that Cressida is hurting kind of in a way that she is hurting too.
You know who else is hurting? Our lovely Pen. But we haven't got time to waste because we're going to head over to the Four Seasons Ball, which we've had clips from before, although today as we speak, we did get a new little clip, didn't we, like?
Oh, yes. A clip of Lady Danbury and Queen Charlotte watching Penelope walk through the ballroom.
Does it look like she might be storming out? Do you think that's the moment that...
Very exciting.
Because she's definitely walking with purpose.
On Reddit, they said that her dress isn't torn yet. Oh. But it does look like Lady Danbury is pointing out Penelope to the Queen.
They're both taking note pretty early on.
She's like, there's my emerald. Oh. Sorry.
And she actually is an emerald as well, so it's perfect that she's that beacon. Yeah. Because it's like a bird's eye view, isn't it? That she's this beacon of emerald walking through the crowds. So we have been to the Four Seasons Ball before, but I just wanted to point out that there was a new still released of Francesca standing next to Penelope. Do you think this is a fleeting moment, or do you think they're going to have a bond? Because they have similar stories. They are wallflowers, and as Adjua and Nicola have said, this is a season for wallflowers. Do you think they might have a point of connection there?
I wonder if that's a relationship that they may delve into more in part 2 when she actually is able to interact with the family, because I feel like for the most part they're going to be having kind of these secret lessons, so Fran may not be knowledgeable about that aspect of her relationship with Colin yet, but maybe in part 2.
So they could be having in part 1 parallel stories of being a wallflower and maybe not being with the right person and trying to be with different people but it not being right, and then maybe in part 2 they actually have time to reconnect in this moment where, you know, so we had this in 301, they go off on their parallel journeys, and then at some point in part 2 they're going to come back and sort of touch base again.
How interesting that will be for Eloise if Penelope has a bond with Francesca and is,
yes, of course, and then the sister, she's like, Penelope's like, it's all right, mate, you've got 3 other fucking sisters. I've been at Daphne's the other day for smoked salmon sandwiches. I've been hanging out with Hyacinth. All is good. One last thing about episode 1. Again, by the time this is released, we'll have the spoilers, but I don't think we'll have the answer to this one yet. There is a still, well, there's 2 stills. There's a still of Colin looking very grumpy with like packages. Some of them are open. He's got an unopened journal or book or something in his hand. He's a little bit moody.
Yeah.
But then there's another still of little Gregory holding a bow and arrow. Like we touched on this in our last episode. Do you think this is going to come back to the balloon in episode 2? Do you think we've got Chekhov's bow and arrow? Chekhov is working overtime. I hope he's getting credit on this season.
Well, I mean, like, he can't shoot the balloon because they have to pull it down. So obviously, yeah, I don't think that...
You cannot give a boy like Gregory a bow and arrow and it not cause havoc somehow.
I might at some other point. But I feel like this is a callback to season 1 when Colin goes away. Hyacinth says to bring back gifts. He comes back in season 2, no gifts. Maybe because his journey didn't go so well. But this time he's got potentially plenty of gifts for the family.
Oh, very sweet. Well, we will keep an eye out on the bow and arrow because we know that little Greg is getting injured at some point. And I feel like it's all involved.
I mean, he'd have to be an idiot.
You're talking about a Bridgerton brother. Think about your context, Lecky.
If we assume that Gregory broke his arm because he like falls out of the balloon, does that mean he climbs into the basket thinking, "Oh, I'm going to shoot the balloon that I'm in"?
Maybe. Hang on here.
What?
He learns off of Colin. This is canon. He learns off of Colin, right? He like idolizes him. He idolizes all his siblings.
Yeah.
What if? And we're jumping ahead to the Hawkins balloon. We'll get there in a second. But what if, right? They're like, the balloon is going, the force of nature, the wind is taking the balloon, and for some reason it's really dangerous or something. Or maybe Greg is in there and they're trying to pull it down. But Greg's like, I have a bow and arrow. Why don't I just shoot it?
No, I'm sorry. No.
And then it won't take off. Are you saying that's too chaotic?
And you're saying Violet allowed him to bring the bow to the...
Violet has allowed her children to do a lot of things, hasn't she?
To the Innovations Fair, knowing the hot air balloon's going to be there, Violet would put her foot down. She'd be like, leave the bow at home.
I feel like we're watching two different shows, Lecky.
I mean, they have to pull the balloon down. He's not climbing into that basket with a bow and arrow.
Gregory's like, don't worry, I'll just shoot it instead. That'll stop it going.
Maybe.
We will see. Today, as we speak, we've had the new still of Pen and Colin in the Featherington garden, and it's this gorgeous still where they're both sat on a bench together. Is this the first time they've ever been on like an equal footing, literally seeing eye to eye?
I think so.
It could be, which is so important.
How exciting.
Because it's the levelling, isn't it? It's the heart to heart, it's the honesty, it's the taking off the pedestal.
Yeah.
But if this is the moment of actual, not reconciliation, but the reaching out of the hand.
Yeah.
But the lean... I've called it the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Yeah. The boy is once again leaning into Pen.
And also we see in this that Colin's cravat has a little bit of a purple tone.
Purple, you say?
And we all love a bit of purple, don't we?
This reminds me of the infamous candle scene in the trailer where we see that there's already kind of that burning flame, but it hasn't blazed into new life yet. So I feel like there's this little hint there that he already kind of loves Penelope, but he hasn't accepted it yet.
I love you so much. It's like, there's this tiny little hint, and I'm like, when was the last time we as a society saw Colin? I'm like, lilac Colin.
In purple?
Fucking
Well, I mean, it's proof that he comes back from his travels and that it's still there.
He's carrying the flame, he's carrying the torch for her.
Though, I mean, I guess the timeline for epilogue Lilac Colin is just kind of in limbo anyway, so maybe we shouldn't go there.
Now, that is a question, isn't it? Can you imagine having to put Lilac Colin into this timeline? Absolutely fucking not. That is a job for someone who's paid, and we are not. Oh, gosh.
Oh, Beans is joining.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Hi.
Beans.
Hello, I just come to say hi. I just am at the storage unit dropping off some stuff.
How's Biscuit doing? She had a neutering this week.
Biscuit is doing so swell.
Oh, God.
She just goes with the flow for everything.
We're just having little chats about Penelope and Colin from Bridgerton. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Oh, wow, I have never heard of this before. My goodness.
It's from this Netflix show. You should watch it.
Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but somebody messaged us about the new still today of them on the bench and said, like, it's a return of the bench. So, bench fans.
I'm a bench girl.
Yeah.
It's not the same bench as the one that I love, but it is a bench.
But we'll take it. It's in the same family, or will be.
It will be eventually. Yeah. This is the one he's inheriting. You're going to have to get used to it because this is what he's going to inherit. The other bench is staying over at the Bridgertons.
Yeah.
Beans, we were asking a question that you can maybe answer whilst you're on the call. Is there any of the stills that are stuck with you? Any of the costuming that's really stuck with you? What are you thinking, babe?
Colin, when he's pulling the balloon, that outfit that he has on is so hot.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's up there with the pirate. I mean, it is the pirate, right? He's the pirate on the ship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, Beans, did you say something like you'd never really bought the pirate thing before, and then you saw this and you were like, I get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Their facial expressions are amazing because Benedict is struggling. That's how you know that it's not your season, isn't it?
Yeah, Benedict. But when we...
Ooh, those thighs. Sorry, Lucky.
When we first got some pictures of Painshill or whatever, we were looking at the tent and we were like, the tent is pirate Colin colors. He's literally wearing a brown and blue vest. It's the same colors as the tents.
God, it's such an interesting waistcoat he's got on.
I love it. It's like tiger stripes.
The stripes, the diagonal stripes kind of like cinch on his waist, make it like draw attention to his waist.
We didn't need to be drawn there, but
snatched.
Also,
Prudence.
I love the tiny little Prudence in the background.
Oh, Prudence. Beans, we were talking about how we talked to James Frohn after his play.
He's a sweetheart.
In fact, Veg flagged him down by saying, oh, we're excited for Prudence or something like that.
And I was literally in the middle of eating a sandwich. I mean, like...
True story.
And I had to say to him, I'm so sorry. I'm currently eating a sandwich. And he was like, that's fine. I was like, I'm so sorry. I've got more food.
Was he so sweet?
He was lovely.
Lord Wilding also struggling.
Yeah, they're all struggling, aren't they?
You know what? They're all struggling except for Colin.
And that's kind of the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Colin has the expression of, I'm doing this. Everyone else is like, kind of like, oh, fuck, why?
I just can't go for Ben. Poor Ben.
Yeah.
And then what about Pen? That's your little Colin still. What's your favourite Pen?
Oh my gosh, it's Pen when she's in the fantasy scene. I love that still.
The dream.
Yeah. Yes. We were talking about the conspicuously placed ribbon. I think we're going to see what's underneath, which is going to be like a corset or something really sexy.
I love a titty pop-out dress, you know me.
Yes, from our last reread episode. I do know this.
Love a titty pop-out dress. But yeah, I'm going to go do this so I can get it done and over with.
Oh, how delightful to have you.
Bye-bye.
How wonderful to have our little beanlet drop in. What a joy. Less joyful is let's go into episode 2.
Also, if you're listening to this and it sounds kind of chaotic, we might just leave in the chaos because
we've had a chaotic week. It's a chaotic time.
And it's easier for editing.
Enjoy the chaos. I think we have a lot of context for episode 2. It continues to throw curveball at us, but I just wanted to go over a couple of things before we dive into episode 3 and 4, which I think are the meatier of the discussion, especially with the stills. So... how bright the moon. So one of the things that's really struck me about 302 when we've had a look at the other 2 episodes now is that I really feel like Debbling is only going to come into it in 303 and 304.
You don't think he's in 302?
We know he's in the story, right?
I guess there's so much going on there.
Yeah, we know he's in the story because he's at the Four Seasons Ball. But I wonder if 302 is really, really focusing on the lessons.
But we also need to see her enacting the lessons. So maybe we'll see her interacting with suitors who aren't Lord Debbling.
Yeah, so this is what I mean. So like, it's really about the lessons and making them spend a huge amount of concentrated time together. Because there's a lot of Polin scenes in episode 2, right, where like one-on-one. And I wonder if this story arc isn't let's see Pen with a serious suitor. It's let's see the lessons, let's have that comedy beat, let them have that concentrated time together so that by the time the episode ends, it's like Penelope is ready to take that step into actually enacting it and finding a proper suitor, by which point he's already fallen because he spent so much time with her.
I can buy that. Also, we don't really put faith in IMDb, but they did say that he was in 1, 3, and 4, I think, right? They didn't put episode 2. Very interesting.
I just think he's going to come into it, but not quite yet.
Yeah, or maybe he first takes notice of her in 301, and then 303 is when he comes in and the suitor's plot is successful in a way that Colin wasn't anticipating.
Yeah. Exactly, like too successful. So we have a very exciting update from the stills. We finally have confirmation of Penelope's maid, her name. We don't have to call her Rosa anymore.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the mirror.
Well, okay, we've got 2 exciting updates. One, we have the mirror. There is an actual mirror in Pen's room. We see it in a couple of shots. So it's sort of the the wooden version of the gold mirror that we saw in the promo.
That weirdly moves.
It's like when you get a new piece of furniture and you can't quite decide.
Should put some wheels on it. In fact, you know what? Colin would appreciate a mirror with wheels because he could move that around wherever he wishes it to be.
He's like, this is not the right lighting. This is not the right setup. This is exactly how I want it.
Yeah.
So we do have the mirror. Very exciting to see her in full force. Once again, highlighting that the mirror scene is probably going to take place in Penelope's room. But in some of these stills, we have more of Penelope's maid, who is named Ray.
Ray!
Lecky, that is not the first time we've heard her name. Where have we heard it before?
It was the Hungarian dubbing artist who took a screenshot
Oh, it's been a journey.
of her doing some voice recording in the studio, and behind her she had a little snippet of the script that she was recording for 302, and there was a little line when translated, it was like, Mama, Ray is going to accompany me to the Rot, which we assumed was Rotten Row.
Which is sort of like a promenade location in Mayfair.
Yes. At first we were wondering if Ray might be a horse, then we thought maybe a maid.
We thought it could be a flashback.
Yeah, we thought it could be a flashback.
But in our group chat, like, you did say, do you think Ray might be the maid?
Yeah. I really like how her name plays into the themes of stepping into the light, just the themes of light and shadows. Her name is Ray. A ray of sunlight, hopefully, in Penelope's life, a little confidant for her.
So do you think that's what she's going to represent? Because I think Rosa did a podcast.
Starving Artist Podcast.
Starving Artist Podcast. We'll link it in our show notes, where she talked about her character, and she really alluded to the fact that Ray spends a lot of her time naturally in the background of scenes.
Yeah.
She has quite a quiet presence. And yet that is by no means sort of diminishing the role that she plays. I really think she's going to be this comforting presence to Penelope. But the idea that she's Ray, there's something enabling about that to me. Does that make sense? Like, she is, like you say, like shining a light on Penelope, but also maybe enabling her relationship with Polin. Yeah. Like an enabler.
Yeah, I was thinking of that market scene, where she's very intrigued by the little Polin moment playing out in front of her.
But maybe she has the ability to stay close enough to enable propriety, but giving her space so they can have the story.
The private moments, yeah.
I think she's going to be a huge advocate for Polin. I think she's the Dunwoody of the show, which I'm so on board with. And I'm so glad that we're going to have, hopefully, this extra confidant for Pen.
Wait, can they introduce a Dunwoody character and his name is also Ray, but it's R-A-Y?
R-A-Y, and then they marry and live happily ever after. Sign me up.
Ray. Sorry.
So really exciting to get actual confirmation of her name. Oh, it's like such an extra detail of a character that I'm really glad we have, because I think she's going to enable all sorts of shenanigans.
Yeah. I'm also intrigued by this still of Portia and Philippa. I feel like Philippa might be telling her mother something about Penelope here, or Polin, because I feel like Philippa is in the other stills paying attention to Penelope.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few shots where she's actually watching her sister kind of closely.
Finches as well.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going home on a night? Do you think they're whacking out the brie, talking about Pen?
I was trying to think, what else would Philippa be talking to here that would have Portia concerned? I don't think Philippa would be like, oh, I'm concerned about the family finances. I think she's maybe talking about Penelope.
I agree. Maybe Philippa has noticed something, because we know that Pen's status is going to cause a ruckus in the family.
Recent interviews have also suggested that the race for an heir plot will be significant in season 3, so it is possible that Portia is perhaps discussing that with Philippa in this still, maybe giving her a little birds and the bees, birds and the butterflies talk.
I'm going to cut out for a bit.
This is the episode where
chaos will happen.
Anyone can drop in.
Yeah.
Anyone can drop out. It's
wonderful.
Absolutely fine, babe.
See you later. If not, goodbye.
So Veg has just had to dip out for a bit, so you're left with us two clowns.
Yeah.
Are you up for it, Lek?
Am I? Yeah, I am. Anyway.
So what we have is that still of her looking at herself in the mirror. She is
Market Pen from To Doom, getting ready for her outing with Colin. Aww. Also, I have to say, this is another dress where in the still I wasn't quite a fan of it, but on her, it looks so fucking beautiful.
The promenade down Rotten Row, we can assume. First of all, that still, I think, might be my favourite thing ever.
Oh my god, that picture is one of my favourite things that has ever existed ever. It's so beautiful.
The way they're walking together,
Yes, the stuff of dreams.
That, I need it framed in my life. It is so beautiful, so utterly romantic.
My god.
It's such a quiet moment of them together. And it's them with the rest of the world sort of faded away. I love it.
Yeah.
But as they're walking together, they obviously interact with
Lord Wilding.
Someone who's fallen from grace, I would say.
We love you, Joe Barnes, really, but Lord Wilding has not turned out to be the man we expected him to be.
The person who needs a redemption arc this season is not Cressida Cowper. Now, if Pen thinks her love has fallen from grace and fallen from her eyes, it is nothing compared to the faith we had in Lord Wilding. The way he continues to ruin our lives.
Yeah. My favorite of all the new Lord Squad members has hurt me the most.
Oh, God. So we know that they have this run-in as they're walking. Colin is so utterly enchanted with her geekiness and her silliness, which we love. But we have another market scene, actually, Lecky, and I really love the still that we have of them together. So this is a moment from the trailer where she says, I would not be angry if you found me to be lost cause. And as she says that, Colin is...
basically checking her out.
Basically, yeah. Essentially. And there's the gorgeous still, like you were saying, where you can see Ray in the background and Pen and Colin walking together. A beautiful dress again.
Also, the table in front of Ray is covered in clocks, a little TikTok moment.
Yeah, so interesting. Now, we know we're going to have a little Bridgerton card game in the Bridgerton Gardens. God bless how parched the land looks, because this was filmed during the heat wave and you can see the scorched earth. But Lecky, the reason I'm bringing this one up for you... Do you think this is going to be our Prophet Hyacinth moment of the season?
Oh, you know what? That'd be great.
Over this card game.
Yes, sign me up.
Because she's positioned right next to Colin.
Yeah, interesting.
So this happens either just before the lesson scene or just after the lesson scene.
Also, when they have these moments as a family, they tend to be very quippy. So I could feel Hyacinth maybe interrupting the card game in a surprising way by making this offhand comment about Penelope that kind of throws everybody.
Yeah.
Especially Colin.
So I just thought,
very interesting.
Little Prophet High, obviously.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Also, is this before or after the brothel? Is it the brothel card game or is it brothel lessons?
Yeah, do we go brothel card game lessons, brothel lessons card game? I would appreciate
card game first, I think.
Yeah.
Wait, no, wait, his hand.
Oh my God, the hand isn't cut. You genius.
Okay, so this happens before the lesson scene because obviously the moment between Penelope and Colin where he cuts his hand comes after the lesson scene. So we think that this card game happens obviously before the lessons begin.
So it goes brothel.
Family time.
Right.
Brothel, family time, then some romancing Mr. Bridgerton.
Busy schedule. I just don't...
I appreciate the break of the family time. At least he doesn't go fucking straight into the lessons from that. I just have to say.
I just hope he's had a shower. That is my overriding thought on the matter. Who knows?
Spoilers, baby. Spoiler. Spoilers.
At some point in episode 2, we go over to Osterley. We've talked about Osterley extensively. We did get some new stills from there. Francesca playing quietly in the piano room.
And looking at somebody.
And looking at someone.
Having a little chat with somebody that they didn't depict in the frame. Very interesting.
Who could that be, Lecky? We will see.
I think it's John.
We know that Osterley is really this... I feel like it's quite a pivotal scene for the two of them where they really have the banter and the friendship, and they spent so much time together at this point that they're bringing so much joy into each other's lives.
Yeah. And intriguingly, that scene from the trailer where Colin is looking across the ballroom at Penelope, it looks like she's speaking to somebody, and it could be, you can only see a little snippet of them. It could either be Lady Danbury or Violet. So there may be like multiple relationships that they're kind of establishing and focusing on at this ball.
Well, I wonder if this could be Violet, and I'll tell you for why, Lek. I think episode 2 is going to be an episode where they spend so much concentrated time together, and they love spending time together. I don't think this is an episode where they're going to have that sort of conflict at this point. He needs to fall for her really fast through spending so much time. And I wonder if this is Violet, because we have the quote from Jess Brownell where she says that Violet knows.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is one of the reasons. But Lecky, I think she's talking to someone.
Right. Yeah, she's definitely fucking talking to somebody.
But I really wonder if, and this is something that since we did our reread, I really think Osterley is the stand-in emotionally for the Smythe Smith musical.
Yeah, I think so.
I think what happens here to them as a couple is what happens there, where they just have so much fun with each other and they enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
And I think that people take notice.
Yeah.
Look, if Eloise is even noticing, something's up.
Yeah, we discussed that we think that maybe this is what drives Penelope to have to write about their relationship, potentially as Lady Whistledown. And since we initially recorded this episode, they released a still of Penelope who appears to be writing an issue of Lady Whistledown on the way home from the full moon ball. Whether or not she continues to write that issue when she actually returns home, it seems that she does write an issue of Lady Whistledown after the full moon ball, perhaps to distance herself from Colin as we initially suspected.
Exactly. So I think I stand by the point that we've said before where they have this wonderful time at Osterley. He gets in the carriage. Eloise is like, don't fucking marry her. He goes home, starts spiraling, maybe daydreaming about
like, what else can I do to her? Sorry.
Yeah, he's like, ooh, we could get married on a Thursday and it would be so beautiful. And I really like carnations.
I can unwrap her like a Christmas present in a garden.
My good friend Pen. And because what happens at the Smythe Smith musicale is that people notice, and the next day she has to write something being like, Miss Featherington and Miss Bridgerton were seen together, but they can't have been talking about anything interesting.
Yeah.
But after what Luke said earlier today for us, he said that he's going to get really annoyed with Whistledown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this is why she's going to put that distance between them. Mm-hmm. Lecky, the other day, we've been organising all the stills with the metadata and with everyone helping find the metadata. There are a few moments from the trailer we haven't been able to place, right, because we don't have the data for it.
Right.
I'm thinking of the 2 moments that she's writing as Whistledown.
Yeah. I think one is 302.
I think that one of them, where she's writing, I think one is Osterley Pen when she's got home. She's taken her hair down because there's a very distinctive curl.
Yes, we had some curl analysis.
Yeah. There's a distinctive curl on her forehead. And I think it's this scene. So I think she goes home and she writes the addition that's going to upset him.
Yeah.
Saying that there's nothing between them, or maybe it's the addition that they had in the promo where it was like, how pitiable that she needs his help.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a moment here where after this wonderful evening they have together, Penelope overhears people talking about them. Yeah. And she realizes that she needs to take these measures not only to protect herself, but to protect her plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's emotionally getting swept away again.
Mm-hmm. And make it clear to herself that, there's a purpose to their plan and that, she can't go back there. And then also to, ensure that she can still attract interest from other men, that they know that she's available and not actually being courted by Colin.
And this is why I think Devlin isn't going to have a huge presence in this episode, because I think the point of this episode for Pen is to get her into that primed and ready position.
Yeah.
Where she's like, right, I'm ready to go out and give it a go. Mm-hmm. And then naturally, as we know, we've got Unicolin, we've got Window Pen, and it all culminates in the moonlight scene. Do you still think this is the first kiss?
Yes. I think they have the first kiss and that triggers that dream.
A little mental breakdown. Okay, we've gone through episode 2. Nothing too revolutionary there. I want to go into episode 3 now because I think this is where it raises a lot of questions. I think it's uncharted territory that we really didn't have a grasp on before. I feel like we're putting more pieces together. And I think these 2 episodes are where Pen and Devlin really step up in terms of becoming a plot line and an obstacle. Mm-hmm. I just want to do a quick mental check-in. So if they did kiss at the end of 302, what do you think their state of minds are as we open 303? If episode 2 is this very immersed period of time they're spending together where he's focused on lessons, blah, 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 do you think she's rationalising it as it was a misguided continuation of their lessons and it didn't mean anything?
Yeah, maybe. We don't see the rest of that scene, so it could be a moment where she breaks out of it and is almost kind of like in the book. Instead of saying thank you, she says something that kind of dismisses it, and Colin is so fucking lost in what just happened that he can't even process what's really happened until he's gone home and had that dream, and then he realizes that he has to pursue her, but by then it's perhaps maybe even almost too late. And judging from recent interviews that the cast has given, it does seem like this is maybe what happens, that Penelope is embarrassed by the experience of their first kiss and kind of backs off from Colin, whereas his life is basically changed forever.
Do you think the dream is really early on in episode 3? Because I was thinking it might be towards the end of episode 3. What do you think?
I think that it might be the beginning of episode 3.
The opening concept.
Kind of like in season 1 where Daphne has that dream about the moment at Vauxhall. That's at the very beginning of an episode. Especially because they need to introduce that passion quickly. So I feel like we're going to see that at the very beginning of the episode, and that's going to add that sexual tension.
That's the mental state. That's the mental well-being check-in.
The moment in the tent and everything. We know that Colin in his mind has already had this really passionate interaction with Penelope when he's looking at her lips. We understand why.
Do you know that scene in the tent, Lecky?
Yeah.
There is something really surreal about the way that they're framed. It's like an extreme close-up, isn't it, on both of them?
Yeah.
And it almost has that sort of like blurred quality. It isn't literally blurry, but do you know what I mean? It has like a slightly weird feel to it.
It's a dream. I think it's an extreme close-up.
Not a dream, but I mean, like, we're in his mindset where he's had that dream.
Yeah.
So his brain's already gone. And so when he's having those normal moments with her, he's like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's really changed it because I thought it was going to come at the end of the episode, but I like what you mean.
I think this adds an undercurrent of sexual tension to every moment that they interact in this episode. Like, they even kind of arrive together at the Innovations Fair. They're, like, walking in together.
He's, like, right behind her, yeah.
I wonder if they'll even have, like, this moment when they meet up either at the fair or before they leave, if they travel there together, where, like, we realize that he's really fighting. He's fighting to suppress these thoughts he has about this very sexy dream that he had about Penelope. And maybe by that point, he realizes he needs to pursue Penelope. So we see in his face just, like, this myriad of emotions where he's like, what the fuck do I do now?
I like that. And I like the fact that because it is like a repeat of the moonlight scene, isn't it? It's in the same place. Mm-hmm. It's like the similar scene, but like way heightened.
Yeah, it takes the flowers from reality and then it's just everywhere. Vines, the torchlight, the fog.
Torchlights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which people have noticed the motifs of the light and the torches and the candles and things like that. And like you say, is how Daphne's was a very heightened, fantasticalized version of Vauxhall. Mm-hmm. You know, the siblings are not all that different, are they? And before we just get into 303 in a little bit more depth, quick note, today we saw the behind the scenes of Pen, and it is promo Pen.
Yeah.
So this Penelope that we've been seeing in all the promo with the sort of the blue pink dress, the shawl.
Remember we were talking about with Blue Pen, her shawl in that scene is also kind of shot through with purple. So I feel like in her wardrobe we're also seeing her fighting to suppress these emotions that are kind of like blooming out of her. But I am shocked that this dress is 303 because we've seen it in like the mirror promo, etc. I thought for sure this was going to be a mirror dress.
Loved up Polin.
Yeah, crazy.
Such a different hairstyle as well.
Yeah, so I feel like we'll see those very sultry curls later in the season, perhaps in part 2.
Well, this was kind of going to come a bit later, but so I wonder if that promo still, the behind the scenes shot, is her on Whistledown business. But to go back to the dream and what we were saying about her hair and her curls, her hair is down, but it isn't down in the way it is in the moonlight where it's kind of ruffled and very loose. It's super curled. It's exuberantly curled. It's very heightened. Now, what I noticed when watching the rest of the clips from episode 3 and the rest of the stills from episode 3 is, if you know, in episode 3 her hair is always pinned back. It's either up in like a chignon or a bun, or it's very tightly back. And she's a character who often wears her hair quite loose and down, or sort of partially down. And I wonder if this is heightening his version of her. You know, she's fully let go with him. She's fully intimate. It's a very vulnerable scene where her hair is abundantly down versus the reality of the Penelope he's going to find, who is on a mission. She's sort of repressing her emotions by holding it back. In episode 4, she has her hair down, but we haven't in episode 3 seen that yet. So I just wonder if that's a way to differentiate the version that Colin's got in his head versus what she's going to find where he's losing his mind and she is marching on with her plan. Now, like, I wonder if the first scene that we're going to get from episode 3, let me know how you think. I think the Stowell house comes first out of what we have, and I'll tell you for why. I think this is the first.
Do you think that the first important Debbling Penelope moment is at the Stowell house?
Yeah, like the significant one.
I would agree with that because in the trailer we see the shot of the suitors walking away from her, and I speculated that Lord Wilding, how dare you?
Once again, fucking betrayal. Can't trust any man, can you? Joe Barnes, we really appreciate you. We really appreciate your portrayal.
Yeah, Joe Barnes, we love you. Sorry. We see the suitors marching away from her, including Lord Wilding. And I said in the trailer episode that I thought that Debbling would swoop in at that point because you see this kind of defeat on her face as they walk away. And I feel like this is the moment where we see Debbling approach her and they kind of hit it off. And then we see maybe Colin have that little mental breakdown where he's like shaking his head.
And she looks so defeated and shaken by the interaction with the Lord Squad. And she sort of goes and hides in the corner again. So it's like her first real foray.
The wallflower.
That's where Debbling approaches her, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think this is maybe not literally the first time they've ever met, but I think this is the first time they properly talk and they have some sort of connection.
Yeah.
The other reason I think that Debbling is first introduced properly in episode 3 as a real suitor is because, you know, the Lady Danbury scene with Queen Charlotte where she's like, Lord Debbling is looking for a wife. That takes place in episode 3.
Interesting.
So I think that establishes that context of, we've trained her up, she's good with the lessons, this is the framing.
Here's a question. Based on that clip we received from Adjoa of the Queen and Lady Danbury watching Penelope at the Four Seasons ball, do you think that Lady Danbury isn't just pointing out eligible suitors for the season, but is maybe talking about Penelope there?
Yeah, maybe.
Because obviously we see the Queen pushing Fran towards Lord Samadani, but we see them interacting from episode 1. So if this is a moment that happens in episode 3, I wonder if the Queen is perhaps focused on a different debutante.
Because she's bored. She's like, what else is going on?
Yeah.
And Lady Danbury's like, there's this other guy, maybe him.
Yeah.
So maybe she does push. I don't know. I still think Devlin's going to come to her quite organically.
But behind the scenes, they may be having this conversation about Penelope. If from episode 1, we see that Penelope has captured the Queen's attention. So I wonder if they're still discussing her in episode 3.
In episode 2, the Queen could have been like, she's been hanging around with that Bridgerton kid for ages. Maybe there's something going on there. Yeah. And then she reads the whistle down. She's like, oh, clearly not then.
Yeah. And also, it would add to the tension if the Queen is focused on Penelope as a debutante, but also fixated on Lady Whistledown this season. Because then you're like, oh shit, Penelope is under so much scrutiny just as herself that the Queen may eventually find out that she's Lady Whistledown for that reason.
Absolutely. That's why I think doubling really kicks in episode 3. And I think Stole House is first. I think this is where they have that moment of interaction with each other.
Yeah. Also, how unhinged is Colin if he watches this, if this is their first real interaction between Devlin and Penelope and he's shaking his head like he can't stand it. Unless, I think one of us may have speculated this as well, unless he's shaking his head at the suitors, at Lord Wilding for hurting Penelope.
So if this is the first meeting that we've seen in that still where Penelope and Devlin are looking off to the side, we know from the trailer that we have a moment in this room of Colin shaking his head.
I would still like this to be about Penelope. I don't necessarily want to see jealous Colin, but I would rather this be a jealous Colin moment where he's like, I don't want Penelope to be with Devlin, and subconsciously shakes his head, and that comes through on his face and he doesn't notice it.
I like their first conversation. That is so unhinged.
At their first conversation, it could be so unhinged, but it could be that he's shaking his head at the suitors, kind of not giving Penelope a fair chance and kind of humiliating her again, especially if we've seen Lord Wilding, the same fucking suitor, kind of give her like the side eye during their last interaction. But I hope this is him reacting to a Devlin and Penelope moment.
I really think he's looking at her. I think they're maintaining eye contact, and it's and I don't know whether it's like a context of her just sort of cringing in the sides or if this is the moment with Devlin, but I feel like they're just going to still have these moments
of connection. Yeah,
it's like the 108, where they find each other across the ballroom.
Yes.
They have this magnetism to each other.
Yeah.
Where they find each other. And he's doing it under the guise of, I'm your tutor, I'm like keeping an eye on things. Just this moment where they keep just coming back to each other through eye contact. Because he isn't just like shaking his head and like, oh God, that girl, that was really awkward. He looks pained and it looks subconscious.
And it does look like a subconscious reaction, like he's not aware that he's doing it. Because he is in conversation potentially with Will and Alice here. He's having a conversation with them, looking across at Penelope and shaking his head like he doesn't know he's doing it.
Because this is crazy Colin, who's had dreams and probably kissed her, and he's gone.
Yeah, so if the sex dream happens at the beginning of this episode, and then this moment happens, Yeah,
and I wonder if from the moment that Devlin enters the picture, Colin's like, shit.
Yeah, I didn't think this through.
Because this is now real.
I made my bed and now Penelope can't lay in it. Sorry.
It was so beautiful, and it's got yellow cushions and it's got a yellow duvet and it's so wonderful. And now she doesn't even match because she wears fucking blue all the time. Yeah. And I have to redecorate, and it's a very difficult time for me personally.
And every time I look at her, she reminds me of home now.
Oh, bless you, Colin. We're coming for you, babe. Just stay strong for like 20 odd more days.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe 2 months. I think you're going to be fucked by the end of part 1. Then I think what happens next is we go to a little innovations fair. So there was a really cool article, especially we love the crumbs, as you know. So there was a really cool article breaking down the different locations that are going to appear in the season.
Yes.
And there was discussion of Painshill, which we've covered before in Crumbs and the trailer and everything like that. But there was a discussion of the context. So Painshill makes a reappearance in season 3 thanks to a new character, an invention enthusiast, Lord Hawkins, who is working to prove that flight is possible with hot air balloons. There's one person who was going to help you do that. I've already got his name. So they chose the location because it's in this really cool valley next to a lake. And they said there's no modernity there. It works very, very well. And we get to see Colin be the hero of the day. Now, this fair extraordinary novelty, the Hawkins bloom. We've got a few stills from it. We saw little clips in the trailer. This is where the tent is as well. There's even, in the background of one scene, there's like little market stalls. Like there's a little confectionery stand. There's a fortune teller.
Yes. I hope they visit the fortune teller.
I hope he goes, and I hope the fortune teller's like, he's like, what's my purpose? I'm like, I'm feeling red hair. I'm feeling 5'1". He's like, what? And of course, this is a scene where Penelope falls back onto Debling and he has his hands on her. So we know the setup. That is the focus of the scene. Chekhov's balloon, well, Hawkins' balloon, I suppose, is the focus of the scene. A little segue, because more stills have come out. Franadani.
In the Queen's tent.
At the Queen's behest.
Yeah.
So, did you see this coming? The little Franadani plotline?
I did not see this coming.
I just felt like she had so much on her plate. You know, she had so many sterlings to contend with.
But we were just talking about parallels at the beginning of this episode. Here we have another kind of rival romantic interest.
Yeah, the wrong suitor.
The wrong suitor.
Who maybe on paper is perfect.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, that she is going to... Because she's very quiet and reserved. Do you think she's sort of going to go along with the Samadani? Because, I mean, if the Queen wants them together, then you're in a sticky position. But do you think she's already met John? And do you think she's already having these quiet connections with John?
I think she's already met John. And they're going to have these quiet little moments together where their love story blooms. Yeah.
So they're really pushing Lord Samadani, but I agree. I think secretly, very quietly, and that's so Francesca, isn't it, to be like reserved. And I think Jess Brownell said that Violet struggles with Francesca because she doesn't know how to handle her.
Also, yeah, she prefers these quiet moments with her piano. So how great would it be if she like met John for the first time when she's having this quiet moment with her piano?
John, to me, has such a calming presence, like a very sweet, honest, earnest, good presence. Sort of like a very uncomplicated, do you know what I mean? Like these quiet moments where I can imagine him. And I think they're deliberately withholding him.
Yes.
But what I don't know now, is Michael going to be there or not?
I don't know. If they're hiding John, they could also hide Michael. But there's also so much going on this season.
Do you think that's so complicated to have Lord Samadani, Michael and John?
I don't know.
I think Lord Samadani's just like a suitor who's wrong. Well, we will find out soon enough. But John, keep your eyes peeled because he's there somewhere. He's just hiding in plain sight. Okay, so what we know then, Lecky, is that somehow this man, our Colin, because we're not a Frohn podcast, sadly, is pulling down a balloon at some point. Because there's a still where the men and Lady Tilly, she pops up, are sort of gathered around the model of the hot air balloon. Do we think something happens, the balloon is compromised, and they have to pull it back down to the ground, and everyone else is struggling?
I still don't know if Violet would allow Gregory to bring his bow and arrow to the thing. Could Gregory shoot the ropes that are holding it in place or something?
Maybe it's nothing to do with Gregory. Maybe he's not involved. Or maybe he's just near it and panics and holds on to it.
Maybe.
Or something. Maybe he's just in danger.
Or he gets in and he accidentally, like, starts it. I don't know how that's going to happen, but he pulls the balloon down.
There's going to be balloon shenanigans. We know Colin is going to save the day heroically. And you can see in the still that he's, like, very much, like, taking control of the situation. He's, like, not struggling. The others are, like, panting desperately in the background. But what we think then is whilst he's having this huge heroic moment, which is a big deal for him because he wants to be needed as a character. He's not just doing it for show. He, like, genuinely wants to help and do good. In the kerfuffle, Pen sort of exclaims back because she's worried about him.
Recent behind-the-scenes footage and interviews now lead us to suspect that Penelope will be far more involved in the action than we originally thought. Stay tuned for our next episode, during which we will discuss the possibility that Penelope might also take to the skies, leading Colin to have to rescue her.
Devlin grabs her.
Yes.
Colin, if you imagine like a jubilation, Colin, you're the hero of the day, babe, 10 out of 10. He sees it.
Yeah.
It is fucking ruins his day. He's like, I am fuming.
Yeah.
How dare a man put his hands on Penelope as if he's not done it like a million fucking times.
And this sets the tone for the innovations ball, where we see him looking absolutely fucking miserable.
Exactly. So that evening, they trundle it back the hill and they go to Hawkins' house and they have the innovations ball. And what you've got is Pen and Debling, who've had like a little moment. I'm not saying Pen's in it bad. Like she's trying to find a fucking suitor at this rate. She's like, oh, like a nice man. And Colin's like, his world is collapsing. So they're at Grimsthorpe Castle, which was described as an eccentric home for an eccentric man. So it's very strange.
But not the eccentric man that we thought.
No, a different eccentric man. So many eccentric men in this.
Yeah. We thought we were going to see Debling's home at some point, but it looks like we might not.
He might not have a home. Maybe he's like, I don't want these people to come to my native.
He doesn't have a home. He's a hermit.
Does Colin have a home? Does Colin have a home? Answer me that question, Nikki. Does he have a hook? He's got a bedroom and he's got a yellow cushion is what that boy has.
It reminds me of, I think it was like a BBC show where it was people went to live in this house in like Regency times, and it was a dating competition, but they all had different roles they had to play. And one of the women, I think, had a fling with the hermit. So the hermit found love, I think.
That's our Pen and Colin, isn't it? Our underdogs. Two nerdy hermits. Oh gosh. I'm sure Debling has an estate. I'm sure it's amazing. And I'm sure Colin is going to hear all about how incredible his estate is.
Debling has an estate, but lives like a hermit.
He's like, I'm not having you meat eaters coming around mine. Okay, so we're at the Innovations Ball that night. We see a lot of Lady Tilly. We see a lot of Benedict. Surprise, surprise, they're having a little bond. So what we know happens at the Innovations Ball is Pen and Debling dance. And what's interesting about Pen's expression during, do you know when they're sipping the lemonade together? She's kind of looking at him and she's kind of in it. I'm not saying she's like has feelings for him or anything like that. I'm just saying like she's trying to get a suitor, and she's like, it's like what Nick said, this guy there could be something, you know.
He views her as a woman and she appreciates it.
And so she's chasing it because she needs to. Maybe this is where she's going along with it, thinking about him as a prospect. Jess Brownell said, so Debling is this guy who has great ambitions and is incredibly sensitive and thoughtful and doesn't really care what Tom thinks about him, even though he's a bit outside the norms. And that's really where Penelope needs to get to care less about what other people think of her. It felt a nice foil to Colin. There is a world where he would have been great for her if she hadn't been in love with the same guy since she was a kid.
Little comment here about Wallflower Cressida, who in our trailer episode we pointed out that she's watching Penelope and Debling. She's watching from the wall, and from the still we see with Eloise, she's standing on the side of the ballroom. She is now the Wallflower, and her dress almost has this slight yellowish tone to it, and the shape of the bodice actually looks kind of similar to Butterfly Pen from season 1, episode 1. So it's almost like she's become the Wallflower that Penelope used to be, while Penelope is having this success with her suitor.
Maybe episode 2, Debling was being chased by Cressida, and then he's turned around and been like,
maybe.
I'm not really interested. I actually quite like Pen. And so maybe that's what Debling has been doing in episode 2.
Oh, yes, because it looks like Cressida disappoints her parents.
Yeah. There are some heartbreaking stills of Cressida, aren't there? We see her house as well, which is so oppressively grey, dark, scary.
Super cold looking. Yes, the drawing room is this very cold, dark. Yeah, awful. But so I wonder if in episode 2 we get a little glimpse of Cressida perhaps having a conversation with her mother, where her mother is kind of pushing her towards Lord Debling, and it's like, it's your 3rd season, you have to find love, otherwise you're going to bring shame to our family. I don't know.
Sorry, that would give us an opportunity to learn about Debling in episode 2, so that by the time he goes to Pen, you're like, I see why this makes sense. Without episode 2 having to be Pen hanging out with Debling. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've established his character.
While still creating more tension between Penelope and Cressida. Yeah, very interesting.
So Pen is kind of going along with it a little bit. Now, I'm really interested in your opinion in what happens first, because we know that they have this dance, Debling and Pen, this gorgeous moonbeam, like there's like a light that stretches across her. She's now in the light.
Just with the wrong suitor.
Maybe Colin's been a bit chaotic and Debling has noticed.
I would almost rather have Colin watching this from the side, from the shadow, while she has her moment in the spotlight and realizing that he should be the one dancing with her. As we know from behind the scenes footage that was released recently, Wallflower Colin is in fact tragically watching Penelope and Debling dance from the side of the ballroom, mirroring how Penelope watched Colin dance with the debutante and Cressida during 108 and 208.
What do you think happens first though?
I think he approaches her at the ball and he wants to have this moment with Penelope, but Lord Debling sweeps in because he's already claimed that dance.
And she's like, what are you doing? It's going well.
Yeah, and he's left to watch from the side of the ball as she has this moment in the spotlight with somebody else.
Because when she's looking at Colin, she kind of looks not upset, but like affronted a little bit.
Kind of confused, perhaps.
And when she's like, why are you being chaotic? And then they have the dance. And of course, we see how upset Colin is.
Yeah, so we have grim-faced Colin at Grimthorpe Castle watching Penelope walk away for the dance, and then him just looking on in misery as they have the dance.
What else happens at the Hawkins Ball?
The little chat between mother and son about the best foundation for a marriage, friendship.
And this is coming in episode 3, that he's having this realization, or at least maybe not realization, but like questioning it and putting it into words. And we touched on this recently where Jess talked about Violet's relationship with him and where she's having to change the way she parents him, and that she does know what's going on and she's trying to very gently push him in the right direction, which is in one way a really good idea.
Kind of let him come to his own conclusion. Maybe not the greatest idea, Violet.
It's like the balloon floating in the sky. Sometimes it needs a gust of wind to just nudge it somewhere to stop it floating into the ether. And so that's kind of the last scene that we have in 303 then, because I thought originally that the dream was going to come at the end, but I think it makes sense that this is the cliffhanger where, similar to the Simon cliffhanger actually, we saw this really stormy expression on his face where Pen at this point is kind of going along with it. She's like, this is kind of the best option for me right now.
Yeah, that's what I think the timeline is. I think the dream colors every interaction they have through the rest of the episode.
Because he's crazy throughout this episode. So it makes sense if that's why he's crazy. So what you have here is this episode where you've gone from the Stoll house where she felt really shaken and she was hiding in the corner. You go from her in the corner to her ending up literally dancing in the light. And it's that journey of confidence that she's grown. And as you said, Jess said that Debling sees her as a woman, and that ties into an insecurity that Penelope's had. I agree that she's had it from Colin, from what he said, you do not count. I also think it ties massively into the Marina of it all. I think Marina laid the bricks for that Colin accidentally built upon. Whereas Debling is going to see her. Jess said, I think it's a true romantic rival was really the goal, and that he does see her as a woman, which is kind of maybe why you can see Penn in the first instance being like, this is kind of the best option for me. He actually takes me seriously. He sees me as a woman. He doesn't see me as the laughingstock of the ton.
Yeah.
And then Luke, in an interview with Bustle, said, Nick and I have talked so many times about how Colin has always held the power in the relationship because of how she felt towards him. It was fun to play the complete swap of that, of how she gains this power of confidence. We flipped everything on its head. And I think that, where you have Penn dancing in the light with Colin on the sidelines, broken, pining, is where we see that flip. But what I think is going to happen is that episode 3, she's going to be trying to keep on top of it, but you're going to have moments like the balloon is going to be a sexualized moment for her where she's watching Colin. And so there's going to be these moments breaking through where her heart is breaking against the walls that her mind has constructed around itself. And this is, I think, where episode 4, I think for Penn, episode 4 is where it starts to completely go wrong. But I think episode 4 is where we're going to start to really break for her. Old Friends, what an episode title.
Baby Polin.
I hope this is a flashback. I really hope it is. And the reason I hope this is a flashback, right, Lek, is if Penn at this point in the beginning of episode 4 is trying to be like, Debling, yes, let's go for it, let's go for it, let's go for it. And it's her head winning out. If that's interspersed with, she fell in love with this boy when she was a kid and he's held her heart the entire time.
I just had an idea. Do you think that baby Penn has a headband? And that's the emotional big connection between those two scenes.
This is exactly what I was trying to convey earlier. Do you know when I was saying that I think she looks really young in this scene?
Yeah. I didn't get that until this second. I wonder if it's the headband that connects those two ideas.
Penn's headspace when we enter this episode, again, it's her mind trying to win out against her heart, right?
Yeah. I
think the first scene that we have contextually is the Fuller scene in the library, where Debling strides towards her, Colin watches as the two of them laugh over books, Portia's nearby. There's this gorgeous shot where Penn looks absolutely radiant and she's smiling up with this big beam on her face.
But Colin is looking at this moment, and I think he's remembering all the times that Penelope has looked up at him with that beaming, radiant smile that you just mentioned.
With a heart in her eyes.
But the headband that she is wearing is what connects to that flashback that we will probably see either, I'm guessing, before or after this scene. At some point in the episode where we realize that that's the connection, that he hasn't seen her since she's been there all along, since childhood. He just hasn't made the connection that they were meant to be together. But I think there will be a moment in that flashback where we see a beaming, headbanded Penelope looking up at Colin in this way. And he'll realize that he had that and he's losing it.
In terms of her state of mind, at this Fuller house, I think she's fully in it in terms of going along with the plan. She seems to be having a nice time with him. Debling seems interested in her. Portia is nearby, so she's keeping around things, which comes back later.
And I think we're going to see a steamy Polin moment after this, before the carriage scene, because I feel like that's what's going to cause Penelope to panic later at that ball and when she has that conversation with her mother.
This is kind of exactly it, because I think this is the last hurrah of Penn the Practical really is winning the game. I think after this is where it's all going to start to fracture. And it's funny because I have a note here that says something has to happen between Penn and Colin after this and before.
That's what I was thinking too.
And I think something has to happen separately and together.
Exactly.
So I think something happens together where we haven't seen it yet, but like you say, probably a sexual moment. Maybe, I think episode 4 needs to build sexual tension to the point that in the carriage it explodes.
I wonder if Colin proposes at the end of this episode, I wonder if the still we saw of Violet and Francesca and Hyacinth kind of reacting to somebody off screen, if that is Francesca's proposal. That also puts the idea of a proposal proposal in his mind. Not only that Penelope may marry Debling, but that perhaps she can marry somebody else. And maybe that is what sparks him to propose to her also at the end of this episode. But I also wanted to touch on that other still we received of Fran and Violet walking through the Modiste Street is what they're calling it. But Francesca, her outfit, she's wearing a silver dress. It's a blue and silver dress, but it has silver all over it. I feel like this is a sign that she is now going to be a Sterling. She is on that path with John. But I feel like it'd be really interesting if at the beginning of this episode, if that proposal happens, and Colin witnesses that or finds out about it. And that puts in his head the entire episode that Penelope may marry someone else or she could marry me.
Yeah, Francesca could marry Lord Samudani or she could follow her heart and be with John. Because that scene with Francesca in the Bridgerton drawing room happens just before the Fuller house scene.
Yeah. And then the next one we see of her, she's covered in silver. Upon reviewing some of our Block 4 crumbs, we actually discovered that she is not only wearing silver, but that Victor Ali, who plays John, is also there with her on that street. There is footage of John stalking down the same street that we see Violet and Francesca walking down here. So it seems like they may perhaps interact in this scene in episode 4.
I like the idea that that's his turmoil as well. It's progressing and progressing and progressing. So I think after the Fuller scene, he's panicking is what it is because he's running out of time. And I think they have some sort of situation together, a confrontation.
I think it's going to be intimate and steamy.
I think it'll be intimate and steamy, but I don't think they can go all the way with it because I think it needs to not explode.
And that she like maybe pulls away from him or something.
They have this joint moment and then I think Portia and Penn, I think that scene might come here. Do you know where Portia's like, well done, this is great, amazing. And Penelope looks frazzled.
After the moment with Colin.
She has a moment with Colin. She realises, shit, my heart is starting to win out again. I haven't got a grip on this like I thought I had because I can't unlove this man. Yeah. She's thinking all the time, we're getting the flashbacks to when they were kids. We see not only Colin's perspective, but we see that Penelope ultimately loved him from day one and cannot undo that from herself. She cannot extract her love from her DNA as she goes around her everyday life. Yeah. This is when Portia sees how well it's going. She gets carried away. She sweeps Penn with her. And I think that is the point where Penn starts to actually panic and realise she can't do it.
And Portia in that scene may also hint that Debling has indicated to her that a proposal may come.
Exactly. Will Portia recognise the hesitancy at this point?
So the next ball we see when Debling pulls her into that dance and you see Penelope's panic flare.
In parallel, we have Colin, who after his interaction with Penn, they've had that moment. This is when he goes to the games room. And it's so important because that is the same location. He's wearing the same outfit as when he cut his hand. He's holding his hand and he's surrounded by a desk with loads and loads of items. I think he has a journal open. Lecky, the box. Am I insane? Do you think his letters to Penn are hanging out in that box? It's like slightly open and you can see papers. It feels like he's just got everything around him and he's trying to process everything. And this is his moment where he's like, I have to do something, or like it is breaking point for him where he has to sit and he has to confront the truth of how he feels or he's going to lose her.
Oh, you mean the box that's sitting in front of him that's just kind of wedged open?
Yeah. Do you think the letters are in there?
Interesting. I don't know, because I will say in season 2 when we saw Penelope's letters and on her desk, there was like a huge stack. Would he be able to fit all her letters in there? It seems kind of small.
Well, she didn't write many back to him, so
he's got one in there.
he's a bit thin on the ground.
My address has changed. Fuck off.
Oh, bless his little soul.
Maybe.
The candle's there with like the snuffers on top, right? That is the same candle that we see light up in the trailer. Do you think he sits there all fucking night thinking and thinking and thinking, and then he realizes late in the night just before they go to the ball?
Yeah, I like that.
And this is where everything comes to a head for them.
It's kind of like a reversal of the window pen scene where maybe she spends all night deciding to hide that part of herself and he spends all night deciding that he has to take action.
She spends all night snuffing out the flame. He spends all night letting the flicker come back. He takes it and reignites it for them. Because I think the red ball, the Queen's ball, is where everything comes to a head. Because if you look at Penelope's face when she's dancing with Debling, she does not look... We have the still where she smirks at Portia, but that isn't a scene about Debling. That's a scene about her and Portia. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is.
And then when she's dancing, she does not look happy.
I wonder if maybe Debling complements the color of her dress there. Another like parallel with Colin.
Well, what he says there is, you look especially beautiful tonight, Miss Featherington. And I wonder if Portia has said he is going to make a proposal.
Yeah.
Penelope has, having grappled with the realisation that she does actually love Colin, goes into that ball knowing that Debling might propose. and it all finally comes down on her. His words, especially beautiful tonight, that feels like something you'd say to someone. Do you know what I mean? To sort of not butter them up, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, to segue.
Yeah, it's like, it's a special night, you're looking especially beautiful. I wonder again if this is where the Queen's bounty is announced, and so everything finally
Comes to a head, yeah.
it's like all of the spotlight that's been on her through all these different angles, through her love with Colin, through her conflict with Eloise, through Cressida. Maybe Cressida says something. The Queen announces the bounty. Debling's going to propose, and it just bursts, and it's too much. Meanwhile, Colin's just been crazy because he's like, I need to be with you. I love you. I know I love you. Oh my God. And then we have, she bolts. Either she needs to write her whistle down issue really quickly and announce the bounty and everything like that, or she uses it as a reason to be like, I need to get out of here. This is far too much. And someone spots her leaving, and then we go into the carriage scene, one and all, before part one ends. Oh, Lecky, she can't be engaged to John here, because she dances with Lord Samadani.
Oh, she dances with Lord Samadani. That's true.
Fran, when the fuck are you getting engaged, babe?
Oh, that is complicated.
Maybe this is like a crescendo for her as well.
Maybe she has the broken engagement. I don't know. But she is wearing so much silver and gray in that one still at the market. At the very least, I feel like her connection with John as...
Her heart is there.
Yeah, her heart is with John at that point.
Because that costume interview said she's swept away by one suitor, but if you look at her costuming, it shows her true path.
So maybe the proposal happens at the Red Ball. If everything is fucking going down at the Red Ball, maybe John proposes at the Red Ball. And maybe it's John coming to call on her at the beginning of the episode.
What if that morning call, John's like, I know you seeing this guy, but fuck it. I'm still going to throw my hat in the ring. Fuck it. And that's the impetus that Colin needs. It's not to see the engagement. It's to see this guy is still saying, go for it. Which is what Colin does for Michael in books. Let's have everything go down at this ball. Why not?
Victor Alley, who has now been confirmed to play the role of John in season 3, has hinted that John chaotically shows up at the Bridgerton house at one point. I think this might be that scene in episode 4, and perhaps it inspires Colin to be similarly chaotic that episode.
You know, that's a good idea, right? I quite like that idea as well, actually. And it's so funny because it's like a funny inversion of how Colin inspires Michael in the book.
So wait, so maybe the proposal happens at the Red Ball.
Let's have everything.
If everything is fucking going down at the Red Ball, maybe John proposes at the Red Ball.
What if that morning call, John's like, I know you seeing this guy, but fuck it. I'm still going to throw my hat in the ring. Fuck it. And that's the impetus that Colin needs. It's not to see the engagement. It's to see this guy is still saying, go for it. Yeah. Which is what Colin does for Michael in books.
Yeah.
Let's have everything go down at this ball. Why not?
Yeah.
But I think that is how we end part 1. My God.
Yeah.
How do you feel like? That was a lot.
We've spoken for a long time, sorry.
We've spoken for a very long time. Okay, so that's the rundown of the stills and everything. A couple more bits, really, to tidy up. Lady Tilly and Ben, we've seen that they've obviously got their connection.
Yep.
Interestingly, Basildon was used a lot for Lady Tilly's house. So we've seen Basildon Park being used for Penelope's house quite a lot.
Yes, the interiors. Well, we do think there's a significance to the Featherington garden. But I told the others that maybe they're just shooting in the garden because the interior is all Lady Tilly's. But yeah.
And apparently Tilly lives in the central town and doesn't want to be in amongst the normal scene of the ton. So she's existing in a bit of liminal space as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, and in terms of another location that's popped up.
Well, I wanted to first touch on the Luton Who estate, which they said will play the exterior of the printing press. Irish Maid Pen, come home. Let's go.
Let's do it.
I really hope that confrontation happens outside of a printer shop and he gets to see Irish Maid Pen. So that would be exciting. It says it plays the exterior of the printing press as well as the Bridgerton family garden.
So Lecky, there's another location.
Clayton House. They said that Clayton House is a new for season 3 filming location that will appear in the second half of the series. The interior looked very Featherington to me, but it's so ornate that I wondered if the Featheringtons could even afford it. But it's in the second half of the series. Very interesting.
Well, could it only be in the second half of the season?
Could she just go home at some point?
We could have a weekend away.
Well, it says it's in the second half of the series, but the interior is like very Featherington, but crazy ornate. If you look at like the molding, kind of has a Featherington style where it's very over the top.
Yeah.
So that could be their country home.
They could just have a weekend away like they did at Aubrey Hall. Why not? A country retreat.
Oh yeah, maybe that's where the engagement ball happens.
Yeah, it could be.
They wouldn't have their first time at the Bridgerton house. It could be the
Featherington house.
His new favorite place, to be honest.
They're like packing up to go spend the weekend at the Featheringtons, and they're like, "Have you got everything?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he's running across. He's like, "Can we get that mirror packed up. Can we just there's like a carriage, like you just see like a procession of them all, and then there's a carriage with this mirror on it.
That's why I said you gotta put wheels on it. So you gotta wheel out the mirror to the carriage.
He's like, I really need her to be able to see herself very clearly during this trip. It's very important to me spiritually. Yeah. Okay, like just one last thing to end on then, a little nice segue for you. Snow on the beach. How you feeling?
Yeah, I teared up when I saw Nicola's story with that song. I knew it would be a good song for Polin, but I didn't really envision it until I saw them, you know, on screen along with that song.
And that kind of gave me faith that this actually will be Polin moment, because at first I was worried it might not be.
Yep.
Also, very last little detail, Nicola today when she was sharing images from Bowral, she had which song on a story?
Kiss Me.
Kiss Me.
Oh,
by
yeah.
Sixpence None the Richer.
I feel like we as fans read far too much into Nicola's actions at times.
No.
But
shocking.
she does use stories to communicate with us sometimes. And I feel like this song might be in season 3.
Let us hope. And then 2 last little crumbs for you, Lecky, we've had in recent weeks. We've had a confirmation of both an LGBTQIA plus storyline. We're not sure which characters that includes, but we definitely know it's going to be part of the season. And we also know from an interview, I think with Luke Thompson, that there's going to be
the disability representation
on the show, which is 2 really exciting strides forward for the show, I think.
Yeah.
It's prided itself on diversity, but I think there are so many different intersections of diversity, so many different means of representation. So we don't have much information about the LGBTQIA plus storyline. But I think we've visited the residents in this episode, actually. Do you want to take us through, again, unconfirmed, but who this might be referring to in context of the disability representation?
Yes, so we think this might be a reference to Sophie Woolley, who will play Lady Stowell, who is a deaf actress. And the actress who's playing her daughter, Alice Kitty Devlin, Miss Stowell, she knows British Sign Language, I believe.
Which is really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we touched on before that it's also very interesting in a season that's very much about gossip, that maybe they may play a significant part in the season. Yeah,
they're a new family, similar to the Livingstons, really. And it seems like a significant scene is going to happen at their house, but I wonder what role they're going to play within the wider Whistledown. There's just so much that could happen with these new families. And we do know that they go to the wedding.
Yes, true.
Spoiler. We do know that they're present throughout the season. So really exciting news about more diversity. I don't know when you'll hear this, but I think, Lecky, monster of an episode. We lost a veg along the way. We gained a beans along the way. But in the meantime, until you hear our next chaotic dispatch, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at WhatABarbPod on Instagram and TikTok.
Veg, do us a favour, jump back in.
Listen to us on podcast platforms and watch us on YouTube. Goodbye.
Thank you, babe. And beans, my darling, beans in a box with biscuit.
Please sing My Hero about a balloon.
Please be my hero and sing about our hero. Take it away, babe.
There goes my hero pulling down that balloon. Here and here, now, pulling down that balloon. Colin.
Das violin. Do 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 do.
A Polin podcast.